and good day to you. So if you're watching this video, it's because you're wanting to know a bit more about me and Dyslexable. First, let's start about my background. I'm from a very poor working class background to begin with. My father was a miner, my mother was a cleaner, and sometimes a waitress. But I grew up, I suppose, because of my working class background, not having major aspirations. It's what's called poverty of aspiration. I just assumed I'd do what my brothers did, what my uncles did, what my mother did, my father did, etc. So I didn't have much concern about my dyslexia. But then I thought, well, I wanted to sort of do a bit more with my life other than work in the building trade or whatever. And I was very good at art, so I found my first job in a sign making company. Unfortunately, I wanted to be a sign writer. I was very good at sign writing, but because I couldn't spell, they wouldn't let me do it, which is fair enough. So they put me on this machine. At the age of just 16, however, I was managing to stretch the capabilities of the machine and find new ways of doing things. And we were cutting out tiny letters, which they beforehand had to order, and very expensive too. Anyway, after 2 years there, I thought, well, this is crazy. You know, I want to join the army. I was nearly 18, so I thought I'd go and join the army. So I turned up at the recruitment office. Little did I know that to be a basic soldier, you still have to have reasonable literacy ability. So I took the test. Failed. So I went away and I thought, well, if I keep writing things down and trying to figure out ways to remember the spellings, I'll pass the next time. This is just to be a basic rifleman, and it's crazy. So I turned up again, and unfortunately, I failed again. So I thought, I don't know what to do, but I really wanted to join the army. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to see other things other than just factory walls all the time. So I went back for a third time. Luckily, this time the sergeant, the recruitment officer, was so impressed with my tenacity that he got me in. He actually said, this time you've passed by 1 point. Anyway, so he especially wanted me to join the medical corps because they were short of medics. So this was helping him fill his recruitment quotas. I ended up in this room, in this classroom, with 40 other guys who were well educated from private schools, grammar schools, etc. I'm thinking, oh, right, okay. I couldn't even spell. So here we are learning biology and medical procedures, and I'm thinking, okay, I'll just do my best. I was picking it up. I was doing okay, but I still couldn't spell. But I ended up in the top 10 of this group of 40 because I was very good on the practical side. It was this point I was realising perhaps I'm not that dumb, because as a young dyslexic, you just think you're a bit thick. You don't think you can do much with your life. But I suddenly found myself in the top 10 because I was very good at the practical procedures. Like when we laid out for operations, I could remember all the instruments in the right order for what operation. And when it came to going into a room and having loads of people with makeup on, I could diagnose them, tell them what the treatment was and in what order in record time. So again, I did well there. But I was also good in adversity. I was quite calm in adversity. As such, they ended up promoting me very early, within 6 months of leaving my basic training. And I suddenly found myself in charge of millions of pounds of equipment and about 8 guys to command. But this is the thing. The thing about the army is they don't care about your ability. If you're good at solving problems or calm in adversity, they want you in a position of authority. So I suddenly found myself in this position of having to put notices up every day. So I put a notice up saying, please hand in your old issue gloves. They're now obsolete. We have new ones for you to collect by Friday. Well, can you imagine how I spelled issue, obsolete, gloves, or even Friday at that time? So in the daytime, everyone would queue up in the morning, the first thing, just to laugh at my spelling. Every day I had this, people just queuing up to laugh at my spelling. And this I found painful because no matter how efficient I was, how good I was, you know, I still found that people judged me by my spelling. I was so fed up and so hurt by this that I decided I had to find a way. Now, I know I failed the test to get in the army, but I had to find a new way of looking at, a new way of researching it. So I decided to look at lots of different things for spelling that aren't visually remembering the spelling, because that's a problem. It's called word blindness for a reason. It used to be called that. We look away, we cannot remember the spelling. So I used mnemonics. I used breaking down the letters of words. So that's how I formed Lan-gu-ag-E. Yeah, language, Lan-gu-ag-E. Because I could never spell that kind of thing. So over time, I brought in lots of other techniques, some of which I invented, some of which I had from other people's ideas, put together this system, which I now call Lan-gu-ag-E. And it's about 10 techniques. But I decided I needed to leave the army. I needed to educate myself. I wanted to be more than just this soldier who was not appreciated. I needed some qualifications. For some reason, I thought qualifications would help me. Anyway, I ended up doing a degree after one qualification after another because I left school with nothing. I ended up doing a degree in industrial design. Out of 120 students on all these design courses, I was the only one who left with 2 registered UK patents. Because one part of dyslexia is lateral thinking. So because of that, I found invention was easier for me. I could just come up with new solutions for some reason. At that point, I didn't know it was anything to do with my dyslexia, or partly to do with my dyslexia. From there, I decided to go into teaching, and I found I was holding my own. I could do the job, I got a reasonable result for my early days in teaching. That was quite good. After so many years, I was in teaching altogether about 13 years. But I decided I was going to go and apply for a job, which I thought was excellent for me, and that is head of department in a dyslexic school. Now, before this, I knew my Lan-gu-ag-E worked because I had a class turn up one day. They were all disaffected. They were in what they call the lower groups. And they were all disaffected. They came in looking rather miserable. And I said, what's the problem? They said, well, we've got a spelling test next week, so we're really worried. Knowing how that feels, I spent a lesson, dropped my lesson, did Lan-gu-ag-E with them. The next week, after their exam, I was in the staff room. There were 2 teachers I didn't know, it was a big school, and they were both talking about their daughters. And one said to the other, my daughter did really well in her test this week. She normally does really badly in her spelling test. And the other one said, so did mine. And then I heard them say, they were talking about something called Lan-gu-ag-E. Well, I knew I was the only one who knew that and taught that, so I knew they'd use my techniques. So by this point, I thought, well, I'll go for this job in this specialist dyslexic school, and I'll be head of department, so I can activate my own techniques and do my own strategies. So that was brilliant. Anyway, within a year, I went to the head and I said, look, I went to the head and I said, what sort of results they're getting? And he said, about 13% generally, A to C grades. That's the high school exam, if you're American. So they're GCSEs, General Certificates of Secondary Education. They were getting about 13%. So I then thought, well, yeah, I think I can do well there. Anyway, I had no idea that my techniques worked so well that within 1 year, my group got 100% A to Cs. And the following year, using the same technique, and what happens with this is the new group come in and have similar expectations. So the following year, most of them got A grades or A stars. So that was a really good result. However, what had happened to me in my personal life, we had a car accident, my baby was thrown out of the car, it wasn't very pleasant, it was tough, and I was struggling emotionally to carry on working. So I took a year out. And then somebody came along with this invention, so we ended up developing it, ended up CEO of a company for about 12 years. But all the time I kept thinking, I must do something with my Lan-gu-ag-E because it obviously is very useful for other people, not just me. So in my retirement, I thought, well, I'm going to do something. So if you're watching this, you're part of the process. You're literally understanding what I've been through and where I'm going with this. And the idea is I'm going to help improve people who either deal with dyslexics or are dyslexic or have dyslexic children to improve their spelling. And I tell you how good it is because I haven't got much money and I'm not loaded, I'm not a millionaire. But at the same time, I've got to produce thousands of videos, and that can cost tens and thousands of pounds because you know how expensive it is to edit videos. So I've got a Portuguese PA and I've got an Asian video editor, and they're doing the editing or organising, and they're both telling me my spelling, I can't help but use your techniques now. I can never forget how to spell it. So it really works at every level, whether you're dyslexic, if you're a foreign student, etc., or parent, or anybody who's interested in spelling, these techniques work really well. Okay. So I also have a massive respect for the dyslexic mind because their innovation, their creativity, their lateral thinking, okay, is very valuable to society, and we need to work at getting them there. We need to work at succeeding and helping them succeed and helping them contribute more in society, because they are a real asset. Before the literal world came in, they were actually very high positions. We need to get them back there. We need to get people on board and get them involved in all sorts of jobs if they're dyslexic, and not excluding them, which we are too much at the moment. So there we are. If you really were inspired by this video, inspired by what I'm doing, then please subscribe, and let's get better and better, and let's really make a difference together. Thank you.